You ever have one of those neighbors who seems to exist solely to ruin everyone else's good time? Well, imagine that person armed with a clipboard, an inflated sense of authority, and a nose that twitches at the faintest sound of laughter. That was Patricia, the self-declared queen of our HOA, though everyone just called her Karen behind her back. The funny thing, it all started with water. My backyard pool wasn't just a pool, it was the neighborhood's gathering place. Every Saturday, the kids cannonballed. Parents grilled burgers, and music drifted lazily into the summer air. For most of us, it was pure joy. For Karen, it was apparently a crime against her peaceful existence. One Saturday, right as the party was heating up with about 30 neighbors laughing and splashing, I saw her march down the street, clutching a folder like she was leading a military tribunal. Her heels clacked against the pavement, and every step was filled with righteous fury. She didn't even wait for the gate to open. She barged in, pointing her finger like a drill sergeant. "This," she shouted over the music, "is a direct violation of HOA regulations. Pools are for private, quiet use, not for these rowdy events." The music quieted and all eyes turned to her. For a split second, I thought maybe she'd realized how ridiculous she sounded. But no, she pulled out a laminated copy of the HOA handbook like she was slamming down evidence in a courtroom. I calmly took a sip of my lemonade and asked, "Karen, are you saying a few hot dogs, kids laughing, and neighbors enjoying themselves is against the rules?" Her eyes narrowed. "Not a few. This is a public disturbance. But here's the kicker. My next-door neighbor, Mr. Collins, who had lived in the community for 25 years, spoke up. Actually, Karen, the HOA handbook doesn't say a thing about private gatherings. You might want to double-check your facts before storming into someone else's yard." A ripple of laughter spread through the crowd. Karen's face turned red, the kind of red you only see on boiled lobsters. She sputtered about noise ordinances and respect for the community. But the more she talked, the more everyone rolled their eyes. That's when I realized something important. Karen wasn't just mad about my pool parties. She was furious because people were choosing to come here instead of attending her stiff, silent HOA meetings. And that was the first crack in her so-called authority. If Karen had left it at one outburst, maybe things would have cooled down. But that's not who she was. The very next morning, while I was sipping coffee on the patio, a thick envelope landed on my doorstep. Inside, a formal violation notice from the HOA, signed in Karen's perfect cursive. According to her, my pool parties violated 6 different community standards, including excessive noise, unauthorized gatherings, and even unsanctioned food distribution. Yeah. Apparently grilling burgers was now a federal offense in her eyes. I laughed it off at first, thinking no one else would take her seriously. But within days, she doubled down. She started patrolling the neighborhood like a hawk, snapping photos of cars parked near my house, recording video clips of kids splashing in the pool, and even calling the sheriff's office to report illegal activities. When the deputy showed up, he couldn't stop smirking. "Ma'am," he told her in front of everyone, "it's a family barbecue, not a crime scene." Karen fumed, muttering about lazy officers and corruption. But she wasn't giving up. At the next HOA meeting, she stood at the front like a prosecutor addressing a jury, waving around her photos as evidence. She demanded the board fine me thousands of dollars and restrict all future gatherings exceeding 10 people. But here's where her plan backfired. The board members, who were usually too polite to challenge her, started pushing back. "Karen," one of them said, "half the community attends these pool parties. Are you suggesting we fine all of them too?" Her eyes bulged. "Yes, rules are rules." That was the turning point. You could see it on the neighbors' faces. This wasn't about rules anymore. It was about her obsession with control. By trying to punish me, she had declared war on everyone. And believe me, the neighborhood wasn't about to let her win. Within a week, my pool parties weren't just gatherings, they were rallies. Families showed up with more food, more music, and more laughter than ever before. Even folks who had never attended before made it a point to swing by, just to show they weren't afraid of her threats. The louder the neighborhood got, the more isolated Karen became. She stood at her window, glaring out like a general watching her troops desert the battlefield. Her flyers, her warnings, her threats, they all started ending up in the trash. And that's when the neighbors decided, if Karen wanted a fight, they were ready to give her one. Karen thought she could scare people into silence, but instead, she lit a fire under the whole community. By the time the next HOA meeting rolled around, it wasn't the usual handful of bored attendees. It was standing room only. Every family she had tried to intimidate showed up, and the atmosphere buzzed with energy like a courtroom about to hand down a verdict. Karen strutted in, carrying her binder of evidence, as though she were about to prosecute the case of the century. She didn't even notice the sea of angry faces waiting for her. She opened the meeting by demanding that unlawful gatherings be banned outright, her voice dripping with triumph, as if the outcome was already settled. But then something happened she didn't expect. My neighbor, Mrs. Lopez, stood up and calmly said, "Karen, you've accused us of breaking rules that don't even exist. What is against the rules is harassment, and that's what you've been doing." The room erupted with murmurs of agreement. Karen tried to gavel it down, snapping, "Order! I am the presiding officer here." But nobody listened. One by one, people raised their hands and told stories. How she photographed their kids without permission. How she pounded on their doors at night. How she threatened fines over the color of their garden flowers. Every testimony was like another nail in her coffin. The board members exchanged uneasy looks, and for once, Karen was the one on the defensive. Finally, Mr. Collins, the oldest resident, stood and delivered the knockout blow. "I move that we hold a vote tonight on whether Karen should remain on this HOA board at all. Enough is enough." The room exploded into cheers. Karen's jaw dropped. She tried to argue that the motion was procedurally invalid. But the board president, who had been quietly enduring her antics for years, finally spoke up. "It's valid. And it's overdue." The ballots were simple, yes or no. People lined up, dropping slips of paper into a box while Karen paced furiously, muttering under her breath. She looked like a queen watching her crown slip off her head in slow motion. When the votes were counted, the result wasn't even close. Out of 50 ballots, 47 said remove. Only 3 supported her, and I had a feeling one of them was her own. Karen stood frozen as the announcement was made. She was officially stripped of her HOA position. Her reign of terror was over, and the neighborhood had spoken with one voice. But the real twist? The community wasn't finished with her yet. You'd think losing her position would have humbled Karen. But nope, she came out swinging. The very next day, she filed a stack of complaints with the county office, claiming my pool was unsafe, my gatherings were unsanitary, and that I was running some sort of unlicensed commercial venue. The inspector who came out almost laughed himself silly. He checked the pool, the fence, the filtration system, and the grill. Everything passed with flying colors. "Looks like the only violation here," he said, scribbling on his clipboard, "is a neighbor who doesn't know how to mind her business." Word spread fast. By the following weekend, my pool parties had turned into full-blown celebrations of Karen's downfall. Neighbors brought banners, tiki torches, and even a karaoke machine. Kids were splashing, adults were clinking glasses, and the music was louder than ever. But here's the part Karen never saw coming. The same neighbors she tried to divide ended up more united than ever. Halfway through the party, Mr. Collins gathered everyone around and made an announcement. "Folks, it's time we vote on a new rule, one that'll keep this community safe from nonsense like this ever happening again." Everyone went quiet as he held up a simple proposal. Ban Karen from attending, interfering with, or disrupting any community gatherings, under penalty of fine. The crowd roared with approval. People lined up to sign the petition right then and there. Even the board president, normally cautious, added his signature with a flourish. Karen must have seen it all from her window, because just as the last signature was inked, She stormed over, demanding the illegal mob disband. But this time, nobody cowered. Instead, 30 neighbors stood shoulder to shoulder at my gate, blocking her path. Mrs. Lopez called out, "You don't make the rules anymore, Karen." "We do." Karen's face twisted, her voice rising to a shriek about tyranny and ungrateful peasants. But the more she ranted, the clearer it became. She wasn't the authority anymore. She was the outcast. Finally, the board president stepped forward, handing her an official notice. She was banned from interfering in neighborhood events. If she tried again, she'd face fines and legal action. And just like that, the self-appointed queen of the HOA had been dethroned by her own subjects. That night, as fireworks popped over the pool and laughter echoed down the street, it hit me. This wasn't just about pool parties. It was about community, freedom, and standing up to people who think power gives them the right to ruin joy. Karen thought she could drown us in rules. Instead, she got swept away by the tide of her own neighbors. Did you enjoy seeing Karen get her comeuppance? If you loved this chaos, make sure to smash that like button. Subscribe for more wild HOA stories, and drop a comment telling us what you'd do if Karen came to your neighborhood. Don't miss out on the next crazy showdown.